called You. Hey.
Oh, it's on the, where is it? It's on the first one.
So, this is about branding, right? And who are you? That's really what everybody wants to know. Whatever area of your expertise, you want people to think of you. You like that photo? You know where I just took that photo on my phone? I was in Quebec visiting my son, and that's an actual place. Youville. So we're going to talk a lot about Youville today, about what makes you you, so that we can create a brand for yourself, a personal brand. What we will talk about is discovering what your brand is, being able to know your communication style, and then learning how to deliver that style. Sound good? Good. So when you think of a personal brand, what do you think about? What do you think about? What is personal branding? What does it mean to you? Yeah.
How you carry yourself.
How you carry yourself? Yeah.
What you represent.
What you represent. What do you represent? Okay, we're going to get into that. What you represent. Anything else come to mind? Yeah.
What people think about you when they think of you.
Exactly. What people think about you when they think about you. That's an excellent way of saying. So in the workforce, in business, you have no idea what people are talking about or thinking about you behind closed doors. And so the one thing that you can get control of is your personal brand, so that you know what you want them to think about and what you want to be in control of your story, right? So let's talk about uncovering what your brand is, what your personal brand is. And you have these worksheets here, and they have interesting stuff on them. The one thing you want to think about is, a lot of times I go to a lot of networking events, and I meet a lot of people. And most times people will tell you what their job title is, right? You are not your job title. Because every job title out there, there are probably 50 or 1,000 people with the exact same job title. That tells me nothing about who you are or how you do what it is that you do. So you are not your job title. You are, only you can be you. And is anybody familiar with the books Simon Sinek, Start With Why? Do you know that book? It's an amazing book, and it talks about people care more about why you do something than what it is that you do. So right now, I'm going to tell you my story in a bit, but I'm doing what I do for a reason. And a lot of you may have personal reasons, logical reasons, emotional reasons why you want to do what you're doing or why you're good at what you're doing. And that's one of the things I'd like to explore today. What is your why? Has anybody thought about it? And if you look at your sheet here, starting with why do you do what you do? What values do you live by? What values do you provide? How do your clients, in your case, your employers, or all of these people, how do they think about you? Why do you do what you do? All right? And here's a way that you can do a little bit of research. I find I work with a lot of clients and their personal branding or their pitching and all of this stuff, their communication. And what you find a lot is that who you are now is very representative of who you were when you were 8 years old. So I want you to think back and when you were 8 years old, what are some of the things that you wanted to do? What are some of the things that you wanted to be? When you start to research, do a brand research about yourself, because that's what we're doing. We know who we are, we know how we show up on an everyday, but we want to think about the research part of it. Who makes you who you are? And so what did you want to be when you were 8 years old? What hobbies or interests have always been with you? Have you always wanted to water ski? Have you always been a great dancer? Have you always just moved all the time or sang all the time? These are hobbies that may reflect, and we can come back and tie them into what your personal brand is. What do people say about you? What are the adjectives that your friends, if you were to ask a bunch of friends, your relatives, your colleagues, your teachers, anybody who interacts with you, are there 3 adjectives that come to mind that everyone will say about you? It's a very interesting exercise that you can do. So you can actually go and you ask your friends. ask about 10 different people, friends, colleagues, teachers, and say, when you think about me, what are the first 3 words that come to mind? And you just collect that data, and from that data, you get a good idea of how you're showing up. That's one of the things. I want you right now, you've all worked together for a while, right? Right? So I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to ask them 3 sentences that come up to mind. 3 words, not sentences. Okay? 3 words that come to mind when they think of you. If you're going to get one, that's fine. Just turn right thinking. Go.
How would you describe it? I was doing, I was like, I like the second. I was like, no, once and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, stop. Now, turn. Stop. Now turn to the person on the other side of you and ask the same question. Oh, you have it. So you have it over there. Okay, hold up. Interestingly, even if you've never worked with the other person, I wish somebody, because she said you never worked with the other person, what is the first impression? What do people get from just turning around and saying hello to you? People are going to get things. So even if you haven't worked with them, you have something to say about them. Believe me, you do. So what is that? Okay? So one of the things, this is what I talked about, you want to do a brand audit for yourself. Compile a list of all of your accomplishment and achievement. What happens as we age, and I've been aging quite considerably over the years, as we get older, we start to forget a lot of our accomplishments. We start to forget what are the great things that we've done. So if you start now, you're in good shape, because half the things that when I was your age, people said about me, they're completely gone. And that's the way our brain works. Our brain is very complicated. It has a very limited amount of memory, and it only holds things that have some relevance right now. And unfortunately, our brain likes to hold on to the negative stuff more than Alex holds on to the positive stuff, right? So it's remembering a lot of the negative stuff, but what you want to do is you want to write down all of those accomplishments. What did this person say about you? What did you win? What did your colleagues or your managers under this internship say about you that were positive? And you really want to start your compiling your brag list, sometimes people call it. Positive feedback, accomplishments, all of that. Things that you're going to need. And I would even have a little journal. Because what happens is, remember I said, your brain holds onto that negative. When you're going into that lacking of confidence space, you're going into an interview or a job interview, take out that little book and you've got this whole list of these great accomplishments that you've done, great things that people said about you, and that is going to be not only part of your brand, but part of the positive mindset reinforcement that you can do for yourself. The other thing you can do is create an avatar for yourself. Remember Beyonce's Sasha Fierce, right? So a lot of people may be one thing at home, one thing around their family, but it may not be working as far as a job goes, right? So that thing, whatever you are, may not work. For me, I'll tell you, I was extremely shy, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But what Beyonce did was, this is Beyonce in real life, who is shy and likes to be by herself and likes to just be a homebody. So she created Sasha Fierce. So Sasha can go on stage and be Beyonce, whereas Beyonce couldn't. You know, so sometimes that is what is it's an option for us, because our minds are so powerful that once we create an image and then step into it, our mind says, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Oh yeah, I do look great in gold. Let me wear that gold. Let me like go on stage and like be this. It's like, and your mind says, yes, you can. Whereas the old Beyonce may not say it. And why do I know this so well? Because that's my story. My brand story, my literal nickname was Shy. This was Shy. This is me. And what you'll see is like I'm looking away from the camera, my toes are pointed in. I would not look at anybody or talk to anybody. So badly that my mother, somebody in my family, it wasn't my mother specifically, started nicknaming me Shy. They started calling me Shy and referring to me as Shy. So, all of a sudden, no one remembered my name. And if you were to meet my family on the street, my mother would introduce you to her two daughters. This is my daughter Donna, this is my daughter Shy. And then she started signing Christmas cards as Shy, hence the spelling. So, I had an entire persona of being shy my entire life until I went to high school. And in high school I said, ooh, this is not working for me. This is really claustrophobic, this is like a straitjacket, and how am I ever gonna accomplish anything if I'm shy? And what I did was, I decided to, long story short, I auditioned for a play. That's what shy people do, right? But I auditioned for a play, and I got this amazing role that was the humanization of the Sphinx. So I got to say very powerful lines. I got to be a powerful person. I got to, like, curses on Oedipus and all of these things. What that did was it changed my brain chemistry. And I could go from shy to shiny, who I am now, right? So that is the neuroscience in a nutshell. And on longer presentations, I talk a lot about brain science because it's really fascinating to me. And it's very, very useful in how we communicate with each other and how we show up. So what I was literally doing, every time I rehearsed for that play, every time I performed that play, every time I said I was in that play, I was reprogramming the neurons in my brain. In the neuron pathway that was going down my shy route, that would not speak to strangers, would not have a conversation, we're then starting to reprogramming another pathway that was then saying, hey, I can go on stage and be the Sphinx. Those are the options that are open to all of us in the way that the brain works. So, and now what I do is I work with all of these companies, training, coaching for the past 17 years on communication skills. So when you go back to what I wanted to do at 8 years old, I wanted to get out of my straitjacket. What do I do now? I help other people get out of the straitjacket of their lives. What I wanted to do at 8 years old was I wanted to be able to get what was in my heart and in my head, out of my mouth, and I couldn't do it until I discovered that acting or discovered that pathway. And now that's what I do with my life. That's what I devoted my life to. So there are many different types of brand stories, and even as young as you are, as fresh starting up, there are ways to craft your story or think about your story, because we all have a brand story. If you look at mine, from shy to shining, that would be number one. That's transformational. I transformed a failure to a win. Then there's redemption. How you, a small David, a lot of those, you hear a lot of those stories on the news about somebody who had no power, but they took down, you think about Norma Ray, the big story. Things like that, you took down a small thing. But even in your environment, there are redemption stories that you probably or could have lived. I had a client once who was at we were at a company, a corporation, and she was really, really adamant about recycling. And she started this whole recycling toilet paper thing in her office. So it was like this whole Norma Ray thing. She did the whole thing, she did the research, not even close to what her job description was. But it was a redemption, and now that's a story that she can change, because she changed the culture of that organization because she wanted to do something. She made a change. miracles, magic bullets. Something was wrong and broken. You did something and you learned something and you fixed what was wrong. I'm sure some of you working within this organization even probably could have found something that you could solve that other people couldn't solve. So what is the miracles, magic bullet thing, or a myth, something that's huge and unbelievable, overcoming something really huge? Many of you may have those stories already. If you don't have those stories, start thinking about what your story could be. And as you go through life, what are some of those stories that you can use to talk about yourself and talk about your brand and make you differentiate from others? Because we all are doing similar things, but why you? Why are you doing it? It all goes back to that. So companies have logos. When we're talking about branding, companies have logos. You see those logos, you know exactly what company it is. And you also have that feeling of what it means. You know, you see Starbucks and you see the coffee, and you see the hominess, and you see Nike is like, it's fast, and BMW is rich and luxurious. So brands get to have those logos. You are your logo. You're wearing it, your face is showing it, your posture is communicating it. You are your logo. So how are you showing up? When you walk into a room, that's why it doesn't matter whether you work with somebody or not. You should walk into a room and it's like, oh, I get you. That's what we want to say, that's what we want to do. And so here are people that have logos themselves, right? So you can see pretty much what they represent, even down to how are they going to get their photos taken. You know, Martha. You know, Oprah has that look. You know, and you know, Richard Branson is like, yeah, take it. I'm here. So these are people who knew specifically how to brand themselves. And you don't have to be a celebrity to be able to brand yourself like that. What you have to do is know yourself intimately and know what it is that you want to show, what your value is, repeating all those why questions that I asked. And one of them is the style, because there is not one size fits all way to brand yourself. There's not one size fits all way to do anything. So I have a communication style that I want to talk about. Because brands cannot be one size fits all. I mean, you remember or know Judy Garland, it's a famous quote. Always be a first-rate version of yourself rather than a second-rate version of somebody else, right? And so how do you show up as a first-rate version of yourself? First, you have to know what your communication style is. Now, you show those 4 pictures of those celebrities. Richard Branson cannot be Oprah. Oprah cannot be Martha, right? They all have individual styles. What is your style? How are you going to differentiate yourself by style? And that's where the actor types come in. Actor types is 9 different communication styles that I've identified, and I've created a fun typing in my book, Standing Ovation Presentations. And they're all called actor types based on different actors that you see in television or in film. Now, why did I do this? I was an actor for many years of my life, a professional actor. After I auditioned for that play, I got bit by the bug, and I became an actor, and I'm very successful. I did a lot of commercials, I did episodic, I did some stage, I did other TV. And I would go to auditions, and everybody would say, oh, I could do that, oh, I could do that. I could do that role. Why didn't I get that audition? It's like, no, you can't really. And then I started writing for the soaps. I wrote for a couple of years for All My Children and One Life to Live. And I had to put words in the mouths of different characters. And I couldn't put the words of a villain in the mouth of somebody who was a sweetheart or innocent, right? So I had to know how to differentiate different people. And that's one of the things that it's open to do. So here are the different types. You've got our hero, you've got our buddy, you've got our whiz kid, and we've got a superhero. And these are important because, you can pass this along. These are fun and important because they dictate the style that you communicate in, the style that other people hear you and experiencing you as. And these are some of the ways, like, so you've got a hero that's very charismatic, lots of energy, powerful, engaging, all of that. And you've got a buddy who is very friendly and super friendly and wants everybody to be your friend and get along with everybody. You've got a whiz kid who is very data-driven and very data. So they all are going to speak differently. They're all going to dress differently. They're all going to be perceived differently. And you've got a superhero that wants to take charge and get into action. All of these fun things. Then you've got 5, the comic, the supermodel, the ingenue, the curmudgeon. It's a little grumpy. You know, they have their own style. They know exactly what they want. And then you've got our villain, who's like our Michael Douglas, is like villain. Is like, and the villain is not a negative thing. A villain has a lot of charisma in its own right. The villain can be very strong, very witty, very clever, and they have a lot of power, a lot of what we call gravitas, as far as presentation and personal branding. That heaviness, that weight is a villain weight. So and then we have the superstar. Superstar is somebody who can really meld themselves into all of those great actor types. And when you look at this image here, what do you notice? It's all Meryl. There are very few people that can do that, but Meryl can do that. Meryl can be the villain. She can be the curmudgeon. She can be a buddy. She can be a hero and a whiz kid. And we often have these qualities. Now, all of these qualities, when I go back, all of these qualities have their ups and their downs. The comic needs to make you laugh. The supermodel has really high standards. They want everything to look good. They want everything to be top-notch. But at the same time, what happens with your real supermodel, people will then start to think that you're only about the look, you're only about glamour, and that's not good. So curmudgeon doesn't care if they're like the villain. So I want you to take a few minutes and look around, go into a circle of 3, and just, like I said, it's really an instant. Think about how you're showing up. How are you showing up? What is your actor type? Think about it.
My actor type. I think I'm wrong.
All right. So before we even get to that, let's look at these. What do you think their actor types are? I know I didn't spend a lot of time. I usually spend more time on explaining it, but I'd like to think about this. It's like we have our hero, we have our superhero. What are some of the types that you would think that these people are? What about Richard Branson? What do you think? Comic?
Yeah.
Interesting. Villain? Anybody else? A buddy. Huh? Hero? Could be a hero. It's like, yeah, we don't know Richard Branson very well, but from that image, I would guess, of course, these are all subjective. There's a quiz on my website that you can take, it's fun. But Richard Branson is sort of a superhero. And why I say he's a superhero is because he likes to get things done. He likes to fix things. He goes in and he likes to make changes. He likes to make all these things. So he could be a superhero, and everybody is a mixture. Not everybody is one thing. People are a mixture of more than one thing. So he could be a hero, and he could be definitely a comic as well. What about Dr. Phil? Huh?
The whiz kid?
He could be a whiz kid for sure. A whiz kid, and you know what else I think he is? I think he's a little bit of a curmudgeon. You know, it's like, because, you know what, if you watch your shows, like you tell him something, oh no, he knows that already. You know, curmudgeons are those the kind of people, it's like, oh no, I know that already. It's like, no, been there, done that, I don't care, no. You know, so I think he's a bit of a curmudgeon and probably a bit of a whiz kid. And what about Martha? Villain? Which is not in jail. The interesting thing is, like, and this is an interesting thing when you learn the type. The thing about Martha is I believe that she's a whiz kid. If you watch her show, it's like every ingredient, everything has to be perfect. You know, whiz kids are all about the data, everything is perfection, every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted. So she's a little whiz kid and probably a little villain, for sure. You know? And then we have Oprah.
Hero.
She's a hero. And then there's the other thing that she plays a lot too, which is the buddy. You know, because if you think back on her show, everybody is her friend. She wants everybody to be her friend. And the neat thing about being a buddy hero, because that's what she is, she can make you be her friend, and then she can take that distance and save your life. So those are really two great characters to have, right? Characteristics to have. So I want you to think about what it is that you are, how it is that shows up. And we're going to get back to that in a bit. Because now I'm going to get to, now I want to get to how do you deliver your brand story. Because everybody's heard about going to networking and talking about yourself and how to introduce yourself, and everybody calls it the elevator pitch, right? Does everybody have a good elevator pitch? Well, good, because I don't like that term. We're going to talk about it later. So, first of all, before we talk about how to craft that elevator pitch, we're going to talk about the delivery. Remember I said the brain, like how many seconds do you think it takes to make a first impression? Somebody said 1, I like that. Yeah, it's between 2 and 3, literally, first impression. And what is that about? So, visual, what's seen? What are the 3 V's of effective communication? The first one is visual. What else is really important about communication?
Vocal.
Vocal. Vocal, yep. And then we have the third one, which is achieve, because nobody uses the word verbal very often, so but it begins with a V, so it becomes one of the 3 V's. So what goes into the visual is your gestures, your facial expression, your posture, your movement, and of course the way that you're dressed. The visual is really important. And then we have our vocal, which is the tone, the quality, the pitch of your voice. All of those things are important. The resonance, the variations in the tone and the rhythm. Rhythm is really important. The volume, vocal patterns and accents. Those are all parts of your vocal expression. And then we have the verbal, which is organization and grammar, the vocabulary, what is being said. So the visual is what we see, the vocal is what we hear, and the verbal is what is said, the actual content. Now, if you were to say, which is the more important of these 3 V's, what do you think that would be? How many people think we're verbal? Okay. What else? Who else thinks the most important? Yeah.
Probably visual.
Probably visual. How many agree with visual? Great. Research study after research study have proven that the non-verbal parts of communication are the most effective and the most impactful. And that is the visual and the vocal. In study after study, it's between 60 and 80% more nonverbal than it is verbal, the words. Why is that? That whole back to the first impression and back to the brain science. When we meet somebody, we are assessing whether that person is safe or unsafe. Our brains are designed to keep us alive. And if we are not being kept, if we are afraid of something being a threat, we're going to go the other way. And so that brain power is to see. Our visual is to say, is that person safe? I don't know. She looks scary to me. I'm going to go this way or I'm not going to like her. And that's what our brain is doing constantly when we're looking at people. We're looking at things to assess the danger. And if there's danger, then we close off. If we feel like that's a friend, we'll move towards them. If we feel like that is somebody I can take advantage of, then we'll move really close to them because we smell dinner, right? That's a way for us to survive. And that's the same thing visually and vocally. If we hear something that is threatening, we're going to go away from it. If we hear something that is engaging, we're going to go towards it. That's why the visual and vocal are so critically important parts of your presentation, your communication. The fourth B is your values, what you live by, what you provide. And we can talk about that in the essence of time. It's like, what is the one thing you want to be known for? What do you value most? Is it friendship? Is it integrity? You want people, is it fairness? These are the kinds of things that when you start thinking about your personal brand, how are they going to impact your brand? Because if it's fairness, you can't be Martha Stewart. Right? So those are the kind of things that people, they want to think about. So, the elevator pitch. I say ditch the pitch because I don't like the word pitch. First of all, I have to just tell you, if you look at that guy, isn't he cute? That's my son. That's my son, Nolan Becker, who is a professional baseball player. He's playing right now in Quebec. But he was with the Cincinnati Reds for a while. And he's a pitcher. So, but I still don't like the word pitch. Because what it does is he can throw a ball like 90 to 92 miles an hour. So you really don't want somebody throwing something that hard at you when they're trying to make friends with you. You know? So don't pitch. And then when we think about pitching, we're thinking about used car salesmen. So pitching is not a word that I like. I use the word intromercial. The elevator pitch is short, it's boring, it gets in your face, it's blah, 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 blah. It's all just words and jargon. I like to call it an intromercial, which is a combination of an introduction and a commercial. It's much more friendly and warm and engaging. So an engaging intromercial will really make you want to take further action when somebody talks to you. So there are 5 parts to an engaging intromercial. First, you want to engage them. Then you want to inform them. Then you want to assure them. You want to seduce them, tell them why you're the best. And then you want to invite them optionally. I'll go through those parts. Engaging them. Make sure you have their attention. Now, when my son pitches, he's got a batter standing there, he's got the pitch, the ball. If the batter decides to move away, he can't throw the ball. And so that's called a balk. So he gets in trouble if he throws the ball when the batter's not ready, right? And so many people will come to you and do that at networking events, right? You start talking, it's like, oh, hi, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, I'm not ready for that. You want to make sure that the person is ready by engaging them first. And some of the ways that you can engage them is to ask questions. You state a startling fact. You tell an anecdote or a story. You give a quotation. Now these are ways to open any presentation, but especially if you're just standing up and doing your introduction. Now say I had you all go around and stand up and give your introductions. You would stand up and most people would say, hi, my name is Robin Hatcher and I'm blah, 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 blah. And everybody expects that, so people stop listening. What you want to do is you want to stand up and tell a story. You want to stand up and ask a question, or state a startling fact, or use a quotation. That will get their attention. And what happens is our brain, what is used to, oh, she's going to say her name, then she's going to say what her title is, and then maybe I'll pay attention, maybe I'll get interested. Your brain, as soon as somebody stands up and does something different, it literally shakes up. So, ooh, that's different. And then it wakes up. It's like, oh, I got to pay attention to that person. She did not do business as usual. And so those are why you want to be engaging first. And even if it's a hi, hello, how are you? Ask questions first. Don't just start rattling off what it is that you do. The second part is informing them. Yes, then you do have to tell them what you do. Not necessarily your job title. Remember, don't start with your job title. What problems do you solve? What need do you fill? How are you going to talk about that? What is a mission or goal? If you don't have a specific need, what is your mission and goal? I love helping. Sometimes I can start with, I help people become more engaging and powerful communicators. So that's what I do. I'm not a communication coach. I mean, that's one thing, but to say that what you actually do and help. I love taking people from shy to shiny. I love helping people make a great first impression. Those are things, and then you can get to the nuts and bolts of what it is that you do. And then you want to assure them. By assuring them, that means, oh, you're worthy of talking to. You have credibility. So that's your street cred, your assurance. What exactly did you do? What are some of the nuts and bolts things that you have done? What experience? What have you produced? These are things that you can then talk about in your infomercial. Because yes, that will engage the people with logic. Because there are two ways to engage people, with emotion and with logic. Now both of them are important, but emotion is the thing that really hooks people. And so that's where your stories, that's where your metaphors, that's where your examples come from. That's emotion. And there's a great, great saying or aphorism that goes, emotion sells, logic tells. You know, so I can tell you so many things. I can tell you how great I am. I can tell you this. But if I emotionally engage you, I sell you on myself rather than telling you about myself. And that's where metaphors really can be really helpful in this situation. So metaphors and analogies. Because we think in pictures, because we think visually and we emotionally engage visually, emotions and metaphors and analogies help the creative mind that you're speaking to visualize you doing something that is familiar to them. And that's why so many ad campaigns use metaphors and analogies. Remember this old campaign, all you had to do is dress this guy like a nerd and have him beat the PC. And then you've got this hipster, and you don't really have to say anything else. It's like, you want to be cool? You know what to do. You know, and that's what it is. So when you have something like that, I do this and I help you do that. You know, so one analogy that I use for people that are in their head a lot, chemistry, communication is like mixing up chemicals. Sometimes it makes exciting discoveries, and sometimes it just blows up. Right? So what you're thinking about is like you can see these chemicals, and sometimes it's blowing up. Well, no, I don't like my communication to blow up. I want it to be exciting. I want it to be a discovery. So thinking about ways of thinking of me as your jack of all trades. Think about me as your Swiss Army knife. Think about me as this or that, as the Google in your office. You know, so that's some of the things some of the analogies that you can use to describe yourself that will then give the listener a picture of who it is that you are. Then you want to seduce them. Share what's in it for them. And seducing them doesn't mean, oh, if you do this, you're going to do that, get that. That's one way of doing it. But a great way to seduce people is by sharing what's in it for them. Just to backtrack, whenever anybody is talking, they have 3 questions in their mind. So what? Who cares? What's in it for me? Right? Those are the things that they care about. And if you can answer those questions, they're going to keep listening. And one of the things that is in it for you today is I want you to be able to leave here and be comfortable talking about yourself to anybody in any way and differentiate yourself from everybody else that's anything even remotely like you. So that's what I would love to have what's in it for you. So share what's in it for them. Share how you can make their lives better. So this is a really great place for stories. If, like, you give an example of how you did it in another company, how you did it in one office versus this, what you did that was spectacular, all of that. And then invite them, and that's optional. If you want to continue to do business with them, if you want to get in touch and keep in touch, you can invite them. How are you going to follow up? I'd love to keep in touch with you. That is a very simple way. Even more advanced, I'd love to keep in touch with you. Should we schedule a coffee? Or can I call you tomorrow and schedule something? So you can go progressively more and more and more, depending on what that relationship is and how much you really want to engage and develop a further relationship. So you can ask them all those things. Now, a lot of people will then say, well, I don't like talking about myself. it seems like I'm bragging. That's like, I don't want to brag. You gotta brag. And it's not bragging. I really don't think it's bragging. It's called sharing. And my philosophy here is, if you do not share specifically all the great things that you have done in your life and that you are capable of doing, how is the other person going to make an informed decision? So sharing means I'm giving you this information, it involves both of us, so that you can make an informed decision. Bragging means I'm going to dump everything on you, and then I'm going to walk away because I'm going to just tell you how great I am, and that's it. So bragging is one way, sharing is interactive, and you need to share because sharing is helping. Sharing is caring. And what you want to think about, every time I share all of the best about me, that means that I care about that other person, because without that person knowing the best about me, they can't make an informed decision. Does that make sense? So now it's your turn. What I would love for you to do is you have this outline on the other page here. I would love for you to think about how you might create your infomercial. And I'm going to take a few of you up front, and I would love to hear your infomercial, and we can see how to mold it, how to shape it, how to create it, how to make it fabulous in your brand, okay? Who's the first volunteer? If I don't see a hand, I will do the Army method of volunteering. All right. Yeah. So tell me about yourself.
My name is Emma. I am a senior year. I'm studying psychology and neuroscience, and I'd like to work with children and be content research material.
Great. All right. Great. Give her a hand. Stay. She said a lot of great things. Now I'm going to go back to my 3 V's, which I didn't talk a lot about. Visual, vocal, and verbal, right? So visual, we've got our posture part. So let's practice posture. Posture, when you're in front of the room, you want to be feet hip distance apart, weight slightly forward. Because this weight slightly forward is going to give you, this is your power stance, right? This is my power. I can't be moved. This is not my power stance, okay? So if you're standing here, Emma, come and push me right now. You gotta push me. Okay, so if you push me like this, I'm gonna fall over, right? Now this is not my power stance, with my ankles crossed, right? So push me again. All right? I'm just getting the hang of it. Not just getting this. No, okay. All right, so now if I stand in my power stance, and then you do that shove again, look at the difference. Look at that difference. That is that whole visual component, that brain, our old brain in our heads are just saying, oh, I cannot push her over. Look at that. I better listen to her. She's not going to fold. Okay, that's visual. So what else about the visual? We have our arms. What do we do with them? Not this. What do we do with our arms? Anybody has a suggestion?
By your side.
Yeah, by your side, loosely hanging like this, and ready to gesture. You don't want to do like this is but loosely hanging like this, and you're ready to gesture. And there are interesting things about gesture. There's gesturing from the heart. That's called your passion plane. And whenever you need more energy, you can gesture from here, because that's an energetic space. There's gesturing from your stomach, it's called. And that is called your truth plane. That's going to be more truthful here. It's interesting. Now, there's also gesturing from other places that are not as effective. These are the two that you want to gesture from. Gesturing from here is called the grotesque plane, which nobody wants to do. Okay? So, I'm giving her a lot of time. So, then that's the visual. Then we have our vocal. Did anybody notice anything vocally with Emma?
Quiet.
Hmm?
It's kind of quiet.
Quiet, a little bit of quiet, right? And there's something else I noticed, and I think it's epidemic, so a lot of people doing it. It's called, what, upspeak? And everything sounds like a question? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So it's an epidemic, it's contagious, you caught it. There's a cure. And the cure is to think of every period as a ball and chain of weight that's going to hit them. Right? So, boom. Okay, so now let's talk about the content. We have the vocal. What are some of the other vocal things that can be problematic? Yeah.
Vocal fry.
Vocal fry? Yeah. Yeah. Miserable. Yes.
Trailing off at the end of your sentence.
Yes. Yeah, I call that drop speaking. Really good. So you have this conversation, you have this great energy at the beginning of the sentence, and then all of a sudden you go down. And then you have another great energy, and no one can follow it, and the energy keeps dropping out and dropping out and dropping out. So drop speaking is not good. Anything else that you notice about vocal?
You can swallow your words.
Yes. Yeah, swallowing your words. And it's interesting, a lot of, I find that more in men, because what it sounds like is like they have this way of speaking that doesn't leave here. And it's just like, and what that doesn't do is it doesn't project out here. It's like, whoa, I need to project, get out your voice out here. And that comes from your diaphragm. And where that softness comes from, most of us speak from our throat, right? We have the vocal folds here, and we're speaking from our throat, which is fine. But if we really want to have power and resonance, we dip down and we use our diaphragm. And that's where the power comes from, that's where the strength comes from, that's where the tone of authority comes from, that's where a gravitas comes from. So those are some of the things you want to think about vocally. What about more visually? What else do we want to think about visually? Anything? All right, so we've got our visual, we've got our vocal, now let's look at the verbal. She said a lot of great things. She did the one thing, which was starting with her name. So your major is neuroscience and what? Psychology and neuroscience. And what's your why? Why do you want to do it?
Because I like working with kids.
You like working with kids. Why do you like working with kids?
I think that working with adults, there's obviously room for change, but kids usually have a fresh slate, and there's a lot that you can do for them.
Great. So there's a fresh slate, a lot you can do for them. Why do you think they need a lot done for them?
Everybody needs.
Mm-hmm. So what is your value? What do you want to, how do you want to impact these children?
I want to help them become smarter, like just be able to go out and love themselves and do what they want to do.
Okay, great. Smarter, self-sufficient, and in the world. Okay, so great values, great things, great major, and then she's got this great internship which you can talk about. So the next time you go to an event, instead of saying, hi, my name is, what is a question that you can ask? Anybody, and this is a group project. And this is not a group project. No, does anybody have a question that she could ask that would elicit an emotion from your listener? There's no wrong answers. Anybody? Or a statement. What's a statistical statement that you could say? Or what's a quotation that you could say? Is there a Sesame Street quotation? Is there something that you can think of? Okay, I've been thinking of some, but what are you thinking? No? Okay, so statistically, so you could just make it up. Statistically, you'll make up a statistic, you look it up later. Today's children spend 60% of their time away from adult supervision. I want to help, which is really a way that their growth and their development, I believe, becomes stunted. My name is Emma. My major is neuroscience and children's psychology. And I am passionate about helping children grow into the adults that I believe they are meant to be. I just finished a summer internship at Sesame Workshop, which is a complete fit for what it is that I want to do in life. I'd love to talk to you about further opportunities. Okay, your turn. Yes, you can steal away.
Okay, so 60% of children today spend their time away from adult supervision, and
Okay, just one pause. What does she do differently than I do?
Oh, the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, it's a habit.
I thought it's going to be no today.
I know. So you're going to, so try it one more time. Well, supervision.
So 60% of children today spend their time away from adult supervision, and which stunts their growth. And I want to work with children to help fix that problem and help them develop them in the way that they should. My name's Emma, and I'm studying psychology and neuroscience to help promote children development. And I had a great internship this summer at Sesame Street, which was a great fit for what I'm studying, and I would love to talk to you about other opportunities.
Woo! Good. I mean, I'm impressed with your memorization. I mean, you're like, whoa, you got it word for word what I said. I don't even remember what I said. I was like, oh, that's not familiar. That's excellent. So, up-speaking is not your friend, but you're going to work on that, right? Yes. Great job. Great job. All right, one more. We have time for one more. Yes, come on up. Yay! No, you do you first, and then I'll see what happens.
We'll do the process.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Tara Gordon. I'm going into my senior year at the Rochester Institute of Technology, and I'm studying animation with a concentration in stop motion animation and minoring in American Sign Language and Deaf culture.
Great. All right. All right, so we'll do the process. Now, the thing is, it's like when I worked with people in organizations and corporate executives and all of that, there's a process called the 5 Whys, which is what I just did with Emma. And it's something that you can do on yourself, and this is something I'm going to do here again. So each time you say something, you ask why. Why do you want to do that? I want to do that at the site. Why do you want to do that? And then why? So by the end of the 5th why, you usually get to the kernel of what it is that is wanting to come out. In organizations, sometimes what the kernel you get to is a process that's a process that's messed up, or a communication thing that's messed up. But in your situation, when you ask the whys over and over again, you finally get to, oh yeah, that's why I want to do what I want to do. So, why animation?
I've always been passionate about this form of media, especially in stop motion. It allows people to express my stories in a medium that has real life aspects of it, but still has that surreal, creative motion that's still in the world of animation.
So there's the real life part and the animation part. Yeah. Great. Good. And what do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with it?
With my combined studies of American Sign Language and Deaf culture, my goal is to create a media platform or eventually a children's television show that can include children who are born deaf and hard of hearing.
Okay, great. Okay, so deaf and hard of hearing. So I would lead with that.
Okay.
So, do you realize that children who are deaf and hard of hearing have a greater ability to process? I'm just making this up.
No.
I don't know why I'm making this up. It sounds right. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you watch certain shows like Sesame Street, the target audience is for children anywhere from about 2 to 3 to 7. And most children start fully learning how to read at around age 3 or 4, but can't fully read full sentences until about kindergarten or first grade. So in that time, while television shows put on captions, deaf and hard of hearing children can't do anything with that because they cannot read, and they fail to engage in the show and to take what Sesame Street is trying to teach them. So my goal is to take what I've learned about ASL and deaf culture and bring it into the medium of either animation or a live action television show to include them.
Okay, so great. So a shorter version, that's great. Now, one way you can do is with this imagine statement. And this is how you bring people into your world and the way you want to think. Imagine being a 5-year-old deaf child and watching Sesame Street. Did you know that they're not able to process half the stuff that the 5 or 6-year-old children, hearing children can? I believe that.
I can make that happen.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, start there. Sure.
Imagine you're a 5-year-old deaf child watching television. When the screen comes up, and I'm going to start over. I tried my words. Imagine being a 5-year-old deaf child watching Sesame Street and not being able to process everything because you cannot hear nor read the captions. I would like to change that for the deaf and hard of hearing children of today. With my background in animation and live action television and ASL and deaf culture, I want to take my learnings and adapt it to make a television show that's inclusive for both hearing, hard of hearing, and deaf children.
Woo! Very, very powerful. Now, see, that is much more powerful, yeah? Right. Now, and the interesting thing is, you say your name afterwards. The interesting thing is, if she was that specific, even if that person doesn't care a thing about deaf children or animation, they're going to hear you in a whole completely different way, right? Yeah. And then they will also maybe even suggest other things. Right? Good job. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody have questions? Yes.
I really like that approach, but how do you kind of fit into that? Like, let's say, for example, it's actually an elevator pitch.
Uh-huh.
You need, a CEO in the elevator.
Right.
How do you kind of just turn it on the fly?
Great question. So how do you turn it on the fly? So the CEO's in the elevator. You're my CEO. It's got to be conversational. So you want to create these pitches for these kind of situations when you're standing up and you do it. However, if you're at a networking event and it's conversational, what you then do is you take your engagement piece and you dish it out here. Then you have a little bit of the conversation. Then you take your credibility piece and you dish it out there. And then you start with your credibility. So they're all in little separate pieces. And then you make it part of the conversation. So for instance, it's like, she could ask me, we're in the elevator, she's a hot CEO. I was like, hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Good. Yeah. You work for Comcast, right?
Correct.
Yeah, excellent. I'm wondering, do any of your colleagues or staff have issues with communicating their value?
Actually, we work with some leadership development, things like that.
Really? Leadership development. I am passionate about helping people find their inner leadership. Yeah, I'm a communication skills. My name is Robin. Hi. Hi, I'm Robin Hatcher. I have a company, Speak, etc. And I work with individuals to help them become more engaging and powerful communicators.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm wondering, can I have your card? I'd love to follow up about your learning and development. I have a couple of proposals that might just be correct. All right, great. Okay. So it's easy and comfortable. And a lot of times you don't even have to talk. Now this is the thing that I'm learning in the many years of business that I've been in. Business is built on relationships. And one of my first really large paying gigs was a while back. And I was at a networking event that was at Diane von Furstenberg store, right? And I walked in and no one spoke to me. And my little shy started like coming up. And I remember walking through the crowd and like making eye contact. And literally it felt like everybody would look away when I made eye contact. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to just turn around and go home. But then I said, but you teach communication skills, you can't do that. So you have to stay. And what happened was I decided I know one thing that I do well is shop. So I forgot everybody and I started shopping. And I'm standing online to try on a dress. And I happen to be holding a dress that's the exact same dress as this other woman. And we start talking about the dress that we're going to try on. Turns out that she worked for Lifetime Television. Turns out that she needed a communication coach. You know, so it really was a conversation about the dress and then being open and being there and being present and being willing. And then it's like, oh, what do you do? Then I slipped it in and I wound up doing business with her company. So it's a conversational approach, and sometimes it's really about just finding a mutual communication that will help. Any other questions? Yes.
I like not having your name be the first thing you say. But so when is a good time to drop it?
Yeah. The interesting thing is that the best time is after you've given your first engagement. Be it a story, be it a quotation. Sometimes I'll introduce myself with my favorite quotation, which is like, do you know, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, what you do speaks so loud, I cannot hear what you say. What I do is I work with people so that they're always heard. My name is Robin Hatcher. How are you?
Like a microphone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the way you do it. The other reason for it, even if you forget to get your name in, if you're interesting enough, they'll ask. And the problem with saying your name first is they're going to forget it anyway. They're going to forget it unless they decide that you're worthy of being remembered. They're only going to decide if you're worthy of being remembered after you say something that impresses them. And then they'll remember your name. You know, so that's the other reason. So yeah, great. Other questions? What's your brand? No other questions? So you want to, yes.
Okay, I was just, maybe you could tell us more about the actor type, just like,
Yeah.
because.
Yeah, I was going to go back to that.
Oh.
Yeah. No, go ahead, I'm glad. No, I wasn't actually, I lied. But I thought about it. Go ahead.
If it's like, you said that each of them has like an upside and a downside.
Mhm.
So, you know, if you go online with 2 quits, it's not about like being one of them, it's if you want to be.
Yes, so great question. So we all have a propensity to one thing. It's like, I call it our default. My default when I was shy was an ingenue. I was sweet, I was innocent and all of that. As I started developing my hero side, then that changed a little bit. I still have the ingenue. And when you start developing that, you do ultimately, especially in the workplace environment, you want to be a Meryl Streep. You want to be able to, okay, I'm in this situation with this type of person. I need to be this type of person. And that gives you the leg up when you know what your type is, what your default is. Because our default will happen under stress. And so Even the hero has a default. Does anybody know what the hero's default might be?
Taking on too much.
Yeah, that's definitely one. Taking on too much. Another hero defect is they forget to be vulnerable after a while. You know, they're so used to being in the spotlight, they're so used to being the hero, that they forget to build real meaningful rapport sometimes, and they just expect people to come to them and like them, and they don't work for it anymore, but then also they're taking that more work. And then we have the buddy, which a lot of us are, like I have a lot of buddy too. You want to be in a relationship, you want all relationships to be great. But that can also lead to being walked over and stepped over and taken advantage of and not being able to ask for what you want out of life. And so that's the downside of the buddy. So when you know you have that buddy type and you're sitting at the meeting, it's like, all right, he's not my friend, I gotta pull out the superhero. Or, and the other thing is, if you're dealing with a superhero or a villain, and your boss is a villain, you can't take your buddy into that office. You know, because the villain is gonna eat the buddy. And so you know that if you are a buddy and your boss is a villain, it's like, okay, how am I gonna rev up? How am I gonna act as if? How am I gonna bring out my Sasha Fierce and walk in there like a hero? And that's what you need to do. Yeah, so our goal is to know who it is that we are, and then to be able to adapt it when necessary. Like Meryl, so she can get jobs. Okay. Yeah.
I just have a question about, so for our infomercial, for example, how we can use it and translate it. So let's say, like, I'm sure many of us have been in meetings where we need to briefly introduce ourselves or we give a presentation. So a few tips on how we could.
See, that's the introducing yourself at the meeting, that's a perfect, you can do the infomercial from top to bottom, because I have the invite.
Right.
But that's the really great part of it. Everybody else stands up and says, my name is, my name is, my name is, my name is, and then you stand up and you say, do you know that it could take up to 12 visits to undo a negative first impression? I'm Robin Hatcher, and I want to make sure that your first impression is a lasting one. Then I work with this, and that's how you introduce yourself, so you really get it. Yeah. Other questions? All right, now, what is your actor type? All right, this is small enough. I'm going to put everybody on the spot, because that's what I do. I want you to go around and I want you to introduce yourself, and I want you to think about, it doesn't have to be a full-fledged infomercial, but one thing that you're going to add to your personal brand. You can say what actor type you are, you can say what your values are, you can say what your why is. So if anybody has a transformational story, I want to hear that, or any brand story. I want you to think about one thing, because I see icicles there. No one gets one until they finish. Okay. All right, so let's start here.
All right.
All right, stand up,
Oh, okay.
because it's all about visuals.
All right. So you just want me to introduce myself?
Yeah.
Then.
And give me one tip that you're going to use going forward.
Okay. My name is Amanda Rifkin. I know I'm not supposed to start with that, so maybe that's one of the things that I'll take going forward. And I think I'll definitely keep in mind my actor type, because I definitely have a tendency to be a bit of an ingenue, and so I could definitely use some more hero in there.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, so, I mean, that's a great point. And the ingenue is one of the toughest actor types in the workplace, because people like to take advantage of them, and then people think that they're innocent and they're stupid or whatever. But ingenues have this amazing optimism, and they have this amazing beauty and innocence and stuff that is really, really helpful. And then to have that hero show up, and sometimes the hero is just in the way that you pitch your voice. You know, it's like, okay, hello, I look like an ingenue, I have all this, but I'm going to sound. Yeah, good, go ahead.
I guess I'm a buddy, but I kind of want to work more on sort of using the comic type because I want to sort of de-stress some situations or communicate my stuff better. And should I say my name now? Orlando Diaz.
Yes, thank you, Orlando. Great. So before he sits down, it's like I love this. It's like I forget what I want to teach until I hear it sometimes. In the verbal part, which I didn't talk about, your words matter. And there's something that happens to us, and it's called minimizing words. Do you know if there's any minimizing words that Orlando used? What did I do? Okay, it's another epidemic, sort of. I think in that short amount of time you said sort of about 3 times. So sort of is that kind of phrase that takes away from the seriousness of what you want to say. I sort of want to do this and I sort of want to do, just do it. You have Nike up there, just do it. Okay, good job, buddy, yes. Okay, now I'm going to shut up because we have a lot of people. The ice is going to melt.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Wasn't it super cool that we got to talk about Beyonce at work today? My name is Daniela Valareso, and I would say I'm a comedic ingenue. And I think what I'm going to take from this is just adding what I want out of life and what I want out of my interactions with people. I feel like I don't say that enough.
Great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So key symbolize opening doors, and they also symbolize success. I'm Taylor Key, and my last name is my friend. I hope to open up a PR firm called Key Solutions to help organizations and businesses. I'm not really sure what my actor type is. I feel like I have a little bit of the hero, the buddy, the agent. But I hope to take, perfect an infomercial. I like, starting off with like an interesting fact or story because I'm very bad at coming up with a story to tell all the time in interviews or situations. So.
Great job. Yeah.
I would say I'm a combination of a superhero and a villain. I think oftentimes when I'm in leadership positions, I kind of feel like I have to be a little more aggressive, and that kind of sometimes that takes away from what I do sometimes. And I also, when I'm under leadership, if I'm working under someone, I'm always the one who takes initiative and tries to solve everything. My name is Sheena Williams.
Yeah, great.
Hey everybody. My heart sort of skipped a beat back there, but not because you announced that we'd all be getting up to introduce ourselves, because Amanda actually pronounced ingenue with a French accent. And my name is Hannah Hudson. I'm a French major, and so every time I hear sort of a little bit of French, I get very excited. I'm definitely a bit of an ingenue too, and one thing I can work on is actually being a bit more curmudgeon and not caring what other people think of me the minute they see me. So that's what I'm going to take away from this meeting.
Great.
How many people enjoy reading the terms and conditions of Facebook? I'm Kim Kalick. I'm in the legal department, and I think I'm a bit of a buddy and an ingenue. And one of the things I want to take away is kind of analyzing the whys to each of those questions when we go through our pitch, so I can better understand what I want to do and why I want to do it.
Yeah, great.
So one of the things I think I'm really going to take away from this session today is thinking more about the 3 V's and how I present myself. And so, because a lot of times I'm in my head too much, so I think that's also part of the reason why I don't necessarily know which actor type I am. I'm Teresa, by the way. And
What do you think? Great job. Notice how nice it is when people just stand up and start talking. It's not that hard. It's great. I love it.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this presentation as much as I have, because I definitely need help in this area.
I think I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon because I very specific in the way I do things. I'm definitely a creature of habit. I mean, I've gotten the avocado toast at Wksp every day at work here. If you haven't had it, definitely should try it. It's really good. Oh, I'm Alexa.
Fun fact, children who learn sign language from baby age to up tend to have better communication skills when they are older, so it'd probably help more people in situations like this. My name's Tara. I think I'm going to take away the actor type because I've seen so many different personality or, like, I'm going to say with the word personality, tests, and it tries to, like, I really love trying to fit myself in categories even though I'm probably 4 of those on there. Where I'd see myself as a hero but see more of myself following the downside of the hero and taking on more stuff. So I want to try to explore all of my actor types and take the benefits.
So one of my favorite movies is Elf, and not because it's like comedic and a funny holiday movie, but because Will Ferrell in it is named Buddy, and I also self-identify as the Buddy in the actor type. One thing I would definitely take away from this is sort of the 3 V's. I think oftentimes when I present like this, I have to like really think everything through my head before I say it. I'm kind of the person who likes to write things down and then say it as opposed to just like speaking on the spot. So just like having an opportunity to do that right now is just good practice for me, and something I want to continue keeping forward doing. So yeah, just trailed off. Because I didn't think it ahead and it was on the spot, but yeah. Good job.
Confucius once said, do what you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And I'm currently experiencing that lifestyle right now at Sesame Street. My name is Tina, and one thing I'll take away from this event would be experience would be, I would say, using like ditch the pitch and using an introversial way to like interact with people instead, because like you mentioned, when you throw a pitch at someone, it kind of like gets in their face. So I think using the introversial, the 5 steps, engaging them, informing them, assuring them, and seducing them would be a more effective way.
Great.
Hi. I don't know if you guys remember in our interview with Jeff Dunn, but he said that all of the forks in the road may not be visible like when you're looking at them. And I believe this internship really like was a hidden fork in the road for me because I have a different perspective on what I want to do in my life. For this presentation, I definitely want to work on the 3 V's, especially my posture. Like I'm standing like this right now, but I definitely need to like work on my what was it? Just the power position. Like I keep leaning together right now. And my name's Katie, so I'm going to work on that.
Okay, so as you all saw, I can be very quiet and shy, and I tend not to speak up. So I'm going to try to work more on being more like the hero and speaking more confidently. So thank you.
Okay, did you guys know that 1 in every 68 children in the United States has autism? So I'm Heather Mabey, and I'm studying autism studies to try and work on that number. And today, I think just learning that you don't have to start with saying your name is so interesting. I would never have that. And also, the gesture thing was very interesting, because who knows, I didn't realize what I did with my hands, but I will definitely take that away.
Great.
Did anybody see this week's episode of Insecure? Woo! No spoilers, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm obsessed with that show, obsessed with Lisa Ray, and it's exactly the kind of art that I want to be making. It's art that is increasing representation and also just showing people a world that isn't really on television right now. My name is Carol, I'm with Creative Development Intern And I think that from this experience, I'll definitely take away the thought about sharing versus bragging is, I think, will be really helpful to me because I do get really uncomfortable speaking about myself, but I think thinking about it as like, how can I help someone else is going to be huge.
So I live on the border of Great Point and Williamsburg, and every time I see someone, they're like, I have a cold brew company, or I make artisan soap, and I get to sit there and see how they cringe when I tell people I work in HR. But I get to explain how I love it, and I get to help cultivate organizational change and performance and things like that, and maybe one day I can help you guys do that. With my actor type, I'm definitely a combination of the whiz kid and the curmudgeon, and I would like to be a little less of the curmudgeon, so I should probably do a little bit more. So we'll work on it.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah, as you can see, I'm hiding behind the camera because I'm a filmmaker, and yeah, my name's Denise, and I want to tell stories, much like Kara said, that increase representation in the media that we consume. So the thing that I will take away from this, I think, is the idea of the actor types being implemented in different situations, so you don't always have to be one type of way, and you don't have to, you know, limit yourself to the way that you present yourself.
Great.
Go again.
Yes. Oh. Okay, round two.
I know. And everyone didn't start with their name. I thought they left out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or last
She can go again. Yes.
Yes. I'm really sorry. Okay. And also, I just wanted to say this that it's so interesting that you had such a transformational experience with theater and how theater kind of changed your personality. Because I worked with kids who came from like different communities where they didn't have a lot of access to the arts, and I've seen like how the arts can like really change people's lives and how they get what they're passionate about, and so I just was really appreciative to kind of see that in action. My name is Amanda, and I'm actually very passionate about arts education, and so it's really great to hear about your experiences.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Wow, you guys did really so well. So, I mean, it's like the more those openings, those beginnings, and I could see that you're starting to connect your stories and your introductions to the greater, bigger why. And keep doing that. Keep finding those reasons. And like, as you even said, it's like, it'll surprise you sometimes. Sometimes things are so close that you can't even figure out, how did I miss that? Do you realize that I was teaching communication skills for about 6 years, and I went on this one big conference where it was like, find your brand, and everybody had these stories. And I said, oh, I don't have a story in my life. It's like, and I went back to my hotel room, it's like, oh my God, I was shy. I mean, I was teaching this for 12 years, for like 6 years, without connecting the fact that my being shy could be a story that could relate to what I'm doing now. So sometimes it's a process, and sometimes you need people to help you bring it out. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your attention. Please keep in touch if you have any questions. Come and thank you.